Hi, welcome to my Derpy Guinea Pig plush making tutorial. This is a video I made specifically for the DIY kit I am selling on Carousel Singapore. This is how the packaging look like, but it might change in the future. The fabric used on this packaging is suitable for cross-stitch project as well. This packaging will allow you to use it as a present wrapper to contain the plush you made for your friends or your loved one. This kit contains instruction manual that will show how to make this plush. It also contains plush filler and plush fabric of this size. It also contains a pair of eye beads. There is an option to choose black or red. To begin, we will have to cut out the sewing pattern provided in this DIY kit. We will then place the pattern onto the right side of the plush fabric, also known as the nice side of the fabric. Trace the pattern on the fabric using water erasable marker or a fabric chalk. As you can see, I flipped the pattern as the instruction manual stated for tracing other parts. You can use a roller cutter to cut the pattern like I do, or you can use a pair of scissors to do so. First step, let's pin the two body fabric parts together, where the wrong side of the fabric facing outwards and the right side of the fabric facing inwards. The reason we should pin them well is so that it will have lesser chance of sewing the two pieces together unevenly, as the right side of the fabric is not only fluffy but also slippery when putting together. Following step 1 of the instruction, we are to stitch the butt side of the plush to the head. Close to stitching the end, I put the guidance paper there to estimate where I'm supposed to stop my stitches. So this is how it looks like after you finish the step 1. Following step 2, we are to pin the base body fabric pieces to the ready sewn body fabric to complete the body of the plush. We are to pin the pattern together from the butt area to the head. Make sure the wrong side of the fabric is facing outwards and the right side of the fabric is facing each other. Make sure the pieces is pinned well so that the edge of both patterns are aligned with each other. Now we shall stitch the back side together. We should start our stitches by going back and forth a few rounds in order to make sure that the first starting stitch is firm enough. We have stitched up to the mouth part. We should leave opening for these areas, so we should not stitch fully. Do the same for the other part. Stitch until the mouth area and stop. Now let's flip the plush inside out. it looks great, just like the instruction. Now we will be filling the plush with plush filler. This filler is called EPE per cotton. It is said to be environmental friendly as it can be recycled repeatedly. It is well filled, and when we put the base fabric in, it is ready to be stitched. Before we start stitching, I would like to show you how to make a knot. Hold the thread end to the needle and start wrapping around it. Then hold the knot and pull through. Then you will be having a nice knot. This knot should be thick enough so that it won't go through the fabric even if you pull it hard. Now let's start stitching the openings of this plush. You should start by insert the needle from the underside of the fabric and pick up 3mm on the opposite side of the fabric. Now I will show you how to make ladder stitch. You are to stitch to the left for 3mm and stitch parallelly on the other side of the fabric for another 3mm to the left. These stitches are made from repeating the process of stitching 3mm to one direction parallelly between the seams of two fabrics. After repeating the ladder stitch a few rounds, it is recommended to tighten the stitch. This is to hide the stitch within the seams and to prevent the thread from being tangled in the process. We have closed the opening, it is time for us to tie a knot at the end of this thread and sew it through the seam of the fabric to the other side of the fabric so that we can make loose of the thread. This should hide the end of the thread well and also the knot. Now we are to stitch the nose part of the plush. I will start the stitch from the lower seam close to the connecting point to the tree fabric and stitch upwards by about 1.5 cm. This is to create a beautiful crease that resembles the nose of a guinea pig. Here, we can make use of the ladder stitch once again in order to tighten the crease. As you can see, I was trying to tie a knot, but it is important to hide the knot nicely. Hence, I decided to make a stitch that would hide the ending of my thread. Now, we will make a knot here and sew through the plush. Now, we have to pull the thread with some tension and cut the thread from the plush. So in order to stitch the eye beads, it is crucial to position it right by using a marker to mark where I'm supposed to stitch the eye beads, help giving a better outlook. It is important to make sure your marking is symmetrical. Same goes for the ear and the mouthpiece marking. Now we will be using leather stitch for the eye bead as well. First, we will make a small stitch on the marked area. Remember to trim off the excess thread end. Then we will stitch through the eye beads. Make a stitch 3 mm away from the first stitch and stitch back through the eye beads. Make another stitch 1 mm away from the first stitch and the eye beads and tighten the stitch. Make sure the thread is well sorted and tightened in case it got tangled by its own. This will help us to take a good look of how well the eye bead is intact with the plush. You can repeat this process until you are satisfied, and we will be doing the same for the other eye beads as well. As you can see, I get my thread tangled at this point when I attempt to tie a knot. It is common to have thread tangled by itself. If you are lucky, you might be able to loosen the knot by putting the needle through the loop and pull the thread on one end of the knot. If you happen to loosen the knot, congratulations. Otherwise, you will have to pick the thread and start all over again. As you can see, the needle was pulled through the marking of where the other eye beads will be stitched on. This is so that we can tighten the stitch between the two eye beads so that the eyes sunk into the plush. Oops, the eye beads did not sunk in. So I will be doing the thread sculpting procedure from here instead. In order to do so, I will need to sew through from one eye area to the other eye and down to the mouth and back up to the first eye. This step can be actually quite tricky as you might lose the needle in between the plush due to the fillings bouncing back and forth. So you can actually try to get a longer needle to do this. Otherwise, just be careful when you do it. the thread through all these 3 points, 2 eyes and a mouth area. We get the right tension that we satisfied, and we can tie a knot. This should keep the plush shape in place. You can sew another few rounds if you are not satisfied. Now I shall demonstrate how to do back stitch for people who do hand stitch for this whole project. First, you start stitching a 3mm stitch to the right. And then from the back side, you stitch upwards another 3mm away from your first stitch. Then you sew back into the first stitch and repeat the process by stitching another 3mm away from the second stitch and back in to the second stitch. We shall repeat this process until you have finished stitching your project. So I'll repeat a few more rounds and I will fast forward this video. There are times when stitching with a sewing machine will have a bit of the misalignment between two fabric. This is the time that I have to just cut out the extra and just fold it out. That's how we have been doing so far. We will be doing leather stitch for closing the openings for both the ear and the mouthpiece, so that it's easier to stitch the parts to the plush itself. Same as the eye beads, we will need to place the ear pieces on the plush in the position that look good. Mark the stitching area to the plush with water erasable marker, and we have to make sure that the ear piece markings is symmetrical. Now we will have to stitch the earpiece to the plush. We'll be using leather stitch again for this part, and we will have to pin the earpiece to the plush so that it's easier to stitch on. Now let's show you how we do the leather stitch. Now we have reached the last step. We will be stitching the mouthpiece to the plush just like we did to the earpiece as well. Same as the earpiece, we will be marking the area that we will stitch the mouthpiece to the plush. Then we will pin the mouthpiece to the plush to ease the stitching process. it is all done. Thank you for watching this tutorial.